All right, welcome everybody. We are going to wait a couple minutes and let some more people join us before we get started, but nice to see you all.
Hey Pat, how you doing?
Great to see you. Happy to know you're doing this. Wonderful.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, welcome everybody. We're going to wait another couple minutes. We'll try to start right at 1 o'clock. If we have any late people, we'll be able to join after that. Don't want to leave you all hanging for too long, and David has a lot of great stuff to say.
Trish, I don't think I've ever heard anyone call you Pat.
Many people do from, yeah, everybody in Brazil is Patricia. So, yeah.
All right, well, welcome everybody to Practical Ethnobotany with our friend David Alexander. We are gonna stop the share here, and I've got a little intro for everyone, and then David's gonna take it away. All right, can you all still see me? All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Erin Rounds. I am the secretary for Angie. Thank you so much for joining us today. Also with me from Angie is Tanya Solkowski and Ann Price, who are our co-hosts as well. In case for some reason I cut out, they are still here. We're excited to share with you today a workshop called Practical Ethnobotany in the Mid-Atlantic region as part of Angie's 37th annual winter conference. A special thank you goes out to our conference sponsors, PSEG, New Jersey Natural Gas, and our anonymous donor who is a friend of environmental science in New Jersey, and to BASF and Grounds for Sculpture for supporting our field experiences coming up this weekend. Also, we're placing a link to our YouTube channel in the chat, so you can go back and check out any of our recorded conference things from the past, as well as our new conference videos will be up in the coming weeks. Just a few reminders. We ask that everyone keep themselves on mute throughout the presentation until we get to the question portion. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the chat and Tanya will be monitoring that. If there are any time for live questions, we'll take all those at the end. So today we're going to discover 8 fun projects to engage and connect with plant and fungus species found on our New Jersey landscape. Projects will be discussed through the lens of traditional and modern knowledge, culture, and outdoor living skills with naturalist David Alexander. Presentation will include an overview of elderberry jam, gummies, and a tincture, sumac tea, autumn olive and wineberry fruit roll-ups, pickled leeks, wild teas, jewelweed ice cubes, hen of the woods, mushroom jerky, and fried chicken of the woods. Go ahead, David, take it away.
Okay, excellent. You can see my screen up there?
Yes. Not yet.
Not yet. How about now?
Perfect.
You can see it?
Yep.
Oh, terrific. Okay, thank you, Erin. I appreciate the introduction. Let's get a slide. Oh boy, now my slides aren't switching. There we go. All right. So thank you for having me. I appreciate everybody coming out. My name is David and I work as a naturalist at the Essex County Environmental Center. I do have a webpage, Nature into Action, Instagram, YouTube, where I get to share all these different nature activities that I'm enthusiastic about. So before I begin, just a little disclaimer. The contents of this presentation is for educational purposes only. Before using or ingesting any wild plant for edible or medicinal purposes or otherwise, please consult a physician, medical herbalist, or other suitable professional for advice. Quick shout out to all the early humans who died figuring out which plants were edible. And so this presentation, it's about ethnobotany, which is a fun buzzword right now that is something that I enjoy trying to help me and my students delve deeper into nature, creating a stronger connection with nature. So ethnobotany is the study of how people of a particular culture and region make use of indigenous native plants. Plants provide food, medicine, shelter, dyes, fibers, oils, resins, gums, soaps, waxes, latex, tannins, and of course contribute to the air we breathe. So why ethnobotany? Well, we can set up systems that provide benefits with minimal inputs, increase self-reliance, deepen your connection to nature, and provide exciting benefits to both people and wildlife. So there's a wonderful book I'll mention, Braiding Sweetgrass, and there's so many incredible chapters and quotes in there. One that I enjoy is to follow back the tread of life in everything and pay it respect. Once you start, it's hard to stop, and you find yourself awash in gifts. So when we talk about plants, we're often first focusing on our physiological needs, things like food, water, warmth, rest, safety needs, security. But then you go beyond basic survival, belongingness and love needs, esteem needs, self-actualization. So plants are part of our lives every day, but they're more than just food and shelter. But there's so many incredible books right now to get started. There's so many wonderful resources. These are a few of my favorites. The Organic Artist, there's a lot of terrific projects in there. So the way I often use ethnobotany is I have a Forest Friends Club after school. I have quite a few homeschool groups that come here and visit regularly. We have nature camps and wilderness skills camps. So I try to implement some of these activities with the students. And so some of the ideas that I use come from books like The Organic Artist. And the knowledge that I gain from books like Northeast Foraging by Lita Meredith. Wonderful resource because it'll be 2-3 pages per plant with only your choice culinary delight plants. Not like Peterson Field Guide where you have thousands of plants. Instead, I recommend you start by focusing on, what is culinary delight? What is the best of the best? That way you won't be so overwhelmed. Sam Thayer's got some terrific resources. One is Nature's Garden, Edible Wild Plants. And all these plants have stories behind them. Many of you are naturalists, so we help interpret the forest. If you don't recognize what you're looking at, you're gonna walk past much of it and miss the stories that all these different plants have to tell. So there's again a lot of resources to find those stories. But one that I enjoy are the Joseph Bruchac books, like this Native Plant Stories book I show here. So it's important you have multiple resources. Many plants may have an evil twin sister that is toxic, poisonous, or even deadly. So Sam Thayer talks about having contradictory confidence. If you're going to use a plant that you actually ingest, use as a food, as a medicine, even a dye, even something that might just come in contact with your bare skin, you better have contradictory confidence so that you would get in a fight with somebody. You'd be so confident that you know exactly what you have is what you have. You could not be convinced otherwise. So this is something that can take years to develop, especially when you didn't grow up in the culture of it. Like I didn't grow up in the culture of this. So many times, I see a plant, I take a picture of it, send the picture around, I ID it in different books. Then you have to watch through different seasons to watch how the plant grows. It's just a long learning progression till you get that contradictory confidence, till you absolutely know you have what you have. And that is critical, especially, of course, if you're working with children. So Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer is a relatively new book that's just a wonderful read. Ties in all these different themes of ethnobotany. And she's got some guidelines for harvesting. And these are critical, especially with our populations today, because I'm in Essex County. We have almost 1 million people here. New Jersey, I think, has like 7 to 8 million, right? The United States has over 300 million. We're approaching 8 billion people on planet Earth. So we've got to be careful and conscious on these, on the way we harvest things from the landscape. So her rules are: ask permission of the ones whose lives you seek, abide by the answer. Never take the first, never take the last. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Take only what you need and leave some for others. Use everything you take. Take only that which is given to you. Share it as the earth has shared with you. Be grateful, reciprocate the gift, and sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. So one of the things that I do is I'll read about a specific plant and then see if I can actually find it. Or at least that's the way I began to get excited about some of these project opportunities. But you know, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, just because somebody else shows something or it seems abundant to them doesn't mean that it's abundant to us. So you can research the abundance and geographic range of these plants by using a resource like the USDA NRCS plant database, or even iNaturalist. I'm sure, hopefully you're all familiar by now with iNaturalist, a web and app-based global community where you can share your observations of wild organisms. So you can take a photograph of a plant or a mushroom and it'll actually recommend what they believe the match is. And that's partially based on your geographic region of where you're taking that photograph. And you have to have some basic botany skill. You know, as a naturalist, there's so many different things that we're expected to know about, but I like to say that I don't know it all, but I know where to find it all. So I can sit down next to a plant or a mushroom with a field guide, and I can study the anatomy of that organism. And I don't, you know, you don't want to make a species match. You don't want to force a match. You want to slowly get a proper ID of the using different keys of the anatomy of that organism. So most field guides will have a page, or at least the Peterson field guides have pages like this that help you to better understand all the different terminology that's used to describe these organisms. But it's a long learning progression. So you may choose to purchase an ingredient as part of your personal learning progression. You know, there's different places that you might, like mountain rose herbs that you might trust, that you might actually purchase the plant from or the fungus from before you personally begin using it. Sometimes that's a good way to better get to know that organism as well. So, but also maybe the plant or fungus doesn't grow near you, but you want to work with it. Maybe you have ethical constraints on the harvest in your bioregion due to low population abundance. Maybe you just lack the confidence to forage it with 100% confidence, or lack the access or ability to forage it. Maybe you don't have the private property, or it's illegal on the public property. And I recommend focusing on the aggressive monoculture of invasive species until you have a strong knowledge of your local native populations. So we say eat it to beat it. There's a lot of highly invasive plants that would be wonderful to pick as much as you want off the landscape. So that's an intro. There's hours we could chat about that, but I want to jump into some projects and share some of the fun projects I've done personally, but also with students at the Environmental Center in Essex County. One of my favorites is working with elderberry. So this time of year, it's been referred to as the Coppice moon, when you can actually cut back some plants and they'll grow back stronger. Sometimes it's discussed that we should be doing that in our own lives, right? You cut things out of your life and you'll be better off in the new year. But elderberry, I just had a homeschool group, and what we did is we went out and we cut back the elderberry. We cut it flat at the bottom, but on an angle at the top, so we knew which the bottom was. We cut sticks about 12 inches long with nodes at the 2 nodes at the bottom and 2 nodes at the top, so that the cutting would have enough strength. And we put it in water. We put it in jugs of water and in a dark, cold closet. So I'm just going to leave that until late April. I might change the water 2 or 3 times, but I'm just going to leave it there. And then those white roots will start to form at the end of April into May, and then you can plant them. You can put them right in pots with good soil, or put them right into a good, rich, damp soil in the ground, and they will take off. But just watch out for that frost that usually hits us around Mother's Day. One year, my first year I did this, I had a couple plants die because I got too excited and planted them too early. And so I taught the kids propagation, but also what I had done is I collected the berries at the peak of freshness over the late summer. I cut those berries right into a paper bag and I put them in my freezer. So I had about 3 bags in the freezer for different groups. And when the berries are frozen, you can use a fork and you can get those berries off the plant more easily without getting berry stain all over your hands. And also you're able to carefully remove the stems, which you don't want to consume. So we were able to remove those berries and then use the berries to simmer on a stove. So since these are fresh berries, you don't have to add much water, but if you buy dried berries, you have to add more water. I'm using the fresh, so just a touch of water to get it going, simmer, and then you can use a cheesecloth or a bandana or a food mill, and you can get the juice separated from the seed within the berry. And then you can make your jam with pectin and sugar. Here's the kids helping, removing the berries, filling metal bowls. And then we had a hot pot, so we were simmering it, straining it. We added agar because I have some vegan kids in the group. So instead of using the gelatin, we use agar. Doesn't taste as good, but it makes everybody happy. We were able to also make gummies. So we use about a half cup of the elderberry juice with the agar and then a touch of honey as well. But I try not to put too much sugar or honey. For one thing, I don't want to get the kids all hyped up on that, but also so they can get an honest experience of the flavor. And especially the gummies are technically a medicine. It's an immune booster. So you don't want them scarfing down the gummies as a treat, as a dessert. It's meant to be, dosed properly, maybe 2 gummies a day. So elderberry tincture as well. You fill the jar with your fresh, clean elderberries. You put in vodka like Tito's. You leave a little head space so you don't get mold at the top. You can leave it about 4 weeks in a dark cabinet, and then you can strain out the liquid into a jar or into droppers, so you can take a few drops each day or so you can take advantage of the medicinal properties of elderberry. So another plant, staghorn sumac. This is an abundant plant in my bioregion where I'm in North Jersey, in Essex County and Morris County. And you can just snap those seed heads off and stick them in cold water. You don't want to put them in hot. You just want to stick them in cold water to get that tangy malic acid to come out into the water. And then you strain the berries because they will kind of scratch your throat if you drink the berries. And you also get a lot of little bug bits, little bug legs and things like that. So you can strain out the seed head, and then you can add ice, you can add honey, you can flavor up your sumac aid tea. You don't want to harvest this after a rainstorm. After a rainstorm, it'll wash off that tangy malic acid. So it's better to even take a nibble. You can just check your staghorn sumac seed head and look at it, make sure it's not covered in bugs, and then you can take a little nibble, see if it tastes right, if it's got a good flavor to it, and then just like at the grocery store, you're trying to pick the best you can. I wanted to talk a little bit about winter teas because it is winter time, and teas are really a great way to get started. If anybody's new to foraging, teas are a good way to get things started, to kind of start slow. So wintergreen is a plant, especially in North Jersey. You go to like Stokes or High Point. This is quite an abundant plant on the forest floor, but it does have ethical considerations, especially of how you pick the plant. You might pick just a leaf from each plant. If you pick all the leaves, you're killing the plant. So you want to just pick here and there so you can leave the population to grow and be there next year. One naturalist I once walked with, Ela Hatter, she's in the Great Smokies. She would say, you leave one for the animals, you leave one for somebody who needs it more than you leave one so the plant can go to seed, and you might take the 4th. So you want to enjoy that resource, have a relationship with that resource year after year, and you also don't know who else is out there using that resource. So you just have to be cautious about that. I didn't mention the elderberry. The elderberry, I plant the elderberry, which gives me more confidence in picking the elderberry. So I'm not going and removing it all from a wild area. I've planted it here at the Environmental Center, so I have quite a few to pick from. I'll still leave some for the birds, the catbirds especially love them, and then I'll take some, take what I can, what I think is reasonable. Sometimes the birds beat me to it, and I completely miss the harvest. And other times the birds will get those berries, and then they'll go to your neighbor's yard where she's drying her white laundry, and they'll go to the bathroom, and then she'll have polka dot laundry, right? So you gotta leave some for the wildlife. We're only taking a little bit, and sometimes it's really just about the experience. And then sometimes I've had that experience, and now I'd rather just admire and appreciate the plant where it sits, and not pick it, especially obviously especially in any sensitive area. Particularly for me, I like doing this when I'm camping. It adds a whole element to camping. Leave no trace is so important, but nature is not wallpaper. Let's see if I can get... Nature is not wallpaper. I appreciate having some interaction with it, some relationship with it. So if I'm camping, I'll make some wintergreen tea, especially in the Adirondacks, one of the places I love to go. There we go. One of the lookalikes is Partridge Berry, but this is also an edible. The wintergreen, if you eat that little red berry, it's like a Tic Tac, like nature's Tic Tac. So it's good breath freshener in the morning. The partridge berry you can eat too, but it's just mealy. It has no flavor. So it's a lookalike, but it's not poisonous. It's not harmful. Spice bush is a favorite here in the swamp in West Essex Park, where the Essex County Environmental Center is. We've got lots of spice bush in our understory. The settlers called it possum wood. They would flavor the meat with it. The red berries are critically important to migrating songbirds, but the red berries taste like an allspice, so you can grind them up and use them as a flavoring. What I do is I take a handful of the twigs of the spice bush, and I'll bring them to a boil and then simmer the tea, and then you've got a wonderful kind of lemony, peachy tea that you can drink in the forest. So if I'm doing a campfire program with some scouts or a homeschool group, this is an easy, fun tea to make for them. Also, black and golden birch. We have quite a bit of that in North Jersey. I suppose a lot of my presentation is about plants that are in North Jersey. Jersey is a small state, but we have our different physiographic regions. It's quite different in the Pinelands. So I don't know. I'm not familiar with really what you might find down there, but I hope some of these plants that I'm selecting are still beneficial to everybody here. Around here, we've got quite a bit of black and golden birch. Yellow birch, I like to call it golden birch. It makes it sound nicer. But you can do the same. You collect a bunch of twigs and you simmer them for a while, and you get a delicious tasting tea. You can also take the twigs, and sometimes on a hike, I'll just use a little pocket knife and I'll clean up the bark and then give them a little toothpick to chew on. Like if you remember going to the diner as a kid, they used to have the mint toothpicks. Some still do, but now it's all chemically synthesized. It's not, it's not black birch, golden birch like it used to be. But if you're out there camping too, you can take one of those twigs, and instead of using it as a toothpick, you can just chew on the end or hit it with a rock a few times. And then it becomes kind of a soft bristle brush you can use as a toothbrush. So you don't have to pack a toothbrush if you go camping. Oh, there it is in the tea. Shows you in the middle, kind of on the left, an appropriate amount you might use for a single cup of tea. The Eastern white pine is another popular tea. Very easy to collect some fresh green needles and simmer till the water turns a bit yellow. A lot of vitamin C. The Adirondack is another word for bark eater. There were tribes that would eat the cambium, the inner bark of the pine. The white pine, WHITE, it's got 5 needles per fascicle per bundle. So it's an easy one to learn to identify and to have access to on the landscape. One of my favorite things to do with the pine, dead branches. the dead branches are dead and dry, yet they haven't fallen to the wet forest floor. So this makes great firewood just to get the fire started. It doesn't make good coals because it's a soft wood, but it also is great for fire friction. If you ever do wilderness skills with the kids and you want to do bow drill fire friction, a lot of my bow drill kits I make out of these white pine branches, which are easy to access because they're dead and dry. I don't have to wait. I don't have to wait. It's just a resource ready to use. Doesn't have to dry. It's a season. Hemlock tree, not the hemlock plant that killed Socrates, but the hemlock tree itself is an edible plant you can make a good tea out of. So you don't have to wait till the spring to the summer. You can start foraging and connecting more deeply with the landscape right now. Autumn olive fruit roll-ups. So this is fun. This is an invasive, so it's not a native. It wasn't here when the native peoples were in New Jersey, or Lenape hoking, but it's here today, and it's an abundant resource that we can use and connect with. The berries are full of lycopene, and so I cut a couple branches, and I have the kids pick and eat the berries right off the branch, and then we fill some jars, and then we can simmer those berries and add a little bit of honey, and make. And then you just put it in your dehydrator. You basically just make your juice, and then you pour it onto dehydrator trays or onto parchment paper, and you can make autumn olive fruit roll-ups in a dehydrator or in your oven on a very low temperature. Wild leeks. This one has a serious ethical consideration. There's some places you shouldn't pick them all. There's other places where they're quite abundant, where you might come across acres of them. The best thing to do, these pictures are from some of the first times I picked leeks, and I did pick a couple bulbs to enjoy from an area that had a quite abundant population. But now I don't even pick the bulbs. I just pick one leaf per a few plants, one leek is like a whole bag full of onions anyway. It's very strong. So like when you put them in your car, you better open your windows or your car will reek of onions, of leeks. Luckily at this spot, there's a stream running right next to it. So I'm able to clean and tickle the roots in the stream and bring home just the clean leeks to use for whatever I might want to do with them. I've replanted leeks. At the center, I've got a little Lenape garden. It's not a big space, but in the Lenape garden, I have edible plants, medicinal plants, and utilitarian plants. So there's wild leeks, there's stinging nettle, there's mountain mint, there's elderberry, there's arrowwood viburnum. So a whole mix of plants. And the leeks that I've planted have actually done quite well in the good quality garden soil, which is really just decomposed wood chips. I've also transplanted a couple of the bulbs out into the wetland forest out here, and some have taken off, some have not. But that's something to consider. I imagine that the area out my back door here at one point had quite a bit of a larger population of leeks. So by transplanting some from a mile away and putting a few back here, I think is a fair move, especially if you're trying to compete with things like garlic mustard. With the leeks, one time I did canned them up, jarred them up. So used basically read the ingredients on the McCormick spice, and then just picked out each ingredient individually out of the cabinet, made a mix of the spice, and boiled it up, and then had the clean jars, put it in the jars, boiled the jars, and canning's fun. I'd like to do more and more canning. It's a good way to put things up for the winter. Here's a favorite with the kids. We get a lot of jewelweed here in the swamp, and you see it's translucent, and in there's an aloe-like mucilaginous substance. So if you have a mosquito bite, if you have poison ivy, if you have a sunburn, you could rub it on those things, and it'll help take the itch away. So I just crack it open with a fingernail, and have the kids rub pieces on their skin. Jewelweed's wonderful for hummingbirds. I see the ruby-throated hummingbirds exactly when the jewelweed blooms. If those flowers go to seed, the seeds, those little green seeds you see, they taste like little walnuts. They're really delicious. But the plant's also called touch-me-not, because if you touch the seed pod, it bursts out. So you kind of have to catch them before they burst out onto the ground. It's an abundant weed where I am, so I don't have any issue harvesting it. It grows quite well in between the plants in the Lenape garden that I've got. And then a fun little nature trick. I love little nature tricks. You know, all the kids huddle around and you get somebody to drop a little droplet of water on the leaf, and you see how it's hydrophobic. How the water droplet just looks like it's floating around on the leaf. So with the jewelweed, what we did is we took the plant, not the roots. The roots get a bit dirty, but we basically just took the plant, added a touch of water in a blender, and then poured it into little cupcake tins and made these wonderful little jewelweed ice cubes. So the jewelweed has medicinal properties. There was a study that showed that it had a similar property to preparation H. So, you know, some of those same properties are now medically or chemically synthesized, and they're in the pharmacies. But you know, they don't still have to go and harvest jewelweed out in the forest, but we can. So you take a little bit of that jewelweed along with turn it into an ice cube, and then the ice also acts as to restrict blood flow. So it helps together to really soothe, again, sunburn, poison ivy, or a mosquito bite. Jewelweed does grow near poison ivy, so you've got to watch out when you are harvesting it. You want to use it as a cure for poison ivy, but not get in contact with poison ivy. This, just to be clear, this is poison ivy above my hand on the right side of the screen. Leaves of 3, let it be. Hairy rope, don't be a dope. Ethnomycology, right? Mushrooms. There's a lot of mushrooms that grow in New Jersey that are wonderful to enjoy, like oyster mushrooms. So you can learn to recognize a few different kinds of mushrooms, like oysters, hen of the woods, chicken of the woods, black trumpets, chanterelles, morels. There's only so many delicious edible mushrooms, and then there's so many more that are, well, poisonous, that could give you explosive diarrhea. So stay away from those. But you learn a couple of the edibles, like oyster mushrooms, and you can do things like turn it into jerky. So usually I fry up my mushrooms in a pan with butter, and then I'll freeze them so I have them throughout the year. But you could boil the mushroom and then add soy sauce or any other flavoring you might like. Put it on your dehydrator and just let it go for you know, so many hours till it's perfectly dry. And then I like to put it in a paper bag just to make sure it's dry. If you put it in plastic and there's any lingering moisture, you know, that'll make it go bad. But you can put it in a paper bag, and you can put it in your refrigerator to last longer. You can freeze it to last longer. I haven't quite stored it out on the shelf for too long because it only lasts so long before it gets eaten. The hen of the woods, actually, I made hen of the woods jerky. I don't have any photos, but that came out even better than the oyster, just because it had a better, stronger texture. Chicken of the woods, hen of the woods. There's some more common mushrooms in our forests that are really delicious if you pick them at their prime point of growth. You see a lot of times online, people will say, "Hey, is this chicken of the woods?" And then they get a confirmation, but it doesn't mean that it's prime and the right time to eat it. You know, you want it when it's super fresh, like dripping juice fresh. Otherwise, some of these mushrooms, they start to taste like cardboard. So you've got to pick them at the peak of culinary delight. And a lot of times you go online, there's so many wonderful forums now, but the best thing to say is if you're confirming something for somebody, or somebody confirms something for you, it's better to say, "Hey, compare it to chicken of the woods, compare it to hen of the woods." So, you know, people send me a lot of messages and they ask me what this is, and that's the terminology that I like to use. Compare it to chicken of the woods. So instead of giving them 100%, "Hey, this is what it is," even if I'm confident myself, that terminology is helpful to just encourage somebody to still do their own research and not just take your word for it. So chicken of the woods is fun to make into fried chicken. If you ever made fried chicken or fish, little flour, a little egg yolk, a little breading, again and again, and then you fry it in the pan. And when you get it fresh, it's absolutely delicious. So there's so many ethnobotany ideas. Here's some more ideas. Conifer pitch glue. I just did that one with the group. We collected spruce pitch, mixed some charcoal in there, crushed some eggshell, and then we glued popsicle sticks together. But you could make an arrow, put in your arrowhead into your arrow with that. Fire friction. Just so nature is not wallpaper, so they're not just walking through the forest with this mindset that you shouldn't touch anything. This way they're interacting with the forest and they're creating their own relationship with the forest. Charcoal art sticks I'm doing next week. We'll take a can and collect sticks, put it in there, and then we burn them on the fire, but they don't fully combust. They char in the absence of oxygen. Since the can is closed, we put the lid on. So you get these charred sticks that make wonderful charcoal art sticks. And while that's happening, we'll make bannock, we'll make campfire bread with flour and baking soda and salt. And then I'm hoping to make some elderberry jam. So then, since they already experience elderberry, then they can dip their bannock in the elderberry. So a lot of this, it's not, it's not just for the kids, it's for me. I'm entertaining myself. I've been on the loop back here 10,000 times. So, it's like if you're not having fun, they're not having fun. But the kids love it because it's one of my favorite quotes, Maria Montessori. She says, the sign of a good teacher is the students are working as if you don't exist. So the kids are actively engaged, working. Once you've given them the intro, it's them who are doing the work. And so it's memorable, it's exciting. It makes it to the dinner table. When mom, dad ask, what did you do today? They'd be happy to talk about it instead of just groaning and saying nothing. Sometimes they'll say, we didn't learn anything today. But that's like the ultimate compliment if they don't even realize, that they were learning because they were having fun, enjoying the activity. So some other things, candle making, you can take animal fat. Maybe a hunter or you are a hunter, you can get deer fat and melt that down. And then you make cordage out of a plant like dogbane or milkweed and you put it in a seashell. You can make candles really, really easily. Berry or nut ink, you take some seashells and you can mash some berries or walnuts, boil walnuts to make an ink. Recycled paper with turkey tail fungus. I put the turkey tails in a blender. I did add some old paper as well, and we made new paper out of those little shelf mushrooms you find in the forest. Journals with tree bark cover. You get some good birch bark, or you flatten some hickory bark. You can make nice journal covers. Mugwort smudge sticks. Mugwort's a heavy invasive. You could gather that up and make smudge sticks. You can grind up acorns, leach out the tannins, and make pancakes. Maple sugaring, of course, is a classic. We don't have sugar maples here. We have sweet gums. We can tap the sweet gums, but we don't have a real operation. But I pretend with the kids, and then we'll often make pancakes on a little griddle, or just do sugar on snow, blend some ice cubes, and then add a little bit of maple sugar on there so they get a taste. Anytime you add food, the kids are going to have a good time. That's like pretty much guaranteed. Stuff a pillow with milkweed fluff. You could collect milkweed or cattail fluff and stuff a little pillow and sew up the pillow and teach them sewing. We also do little medicine bags. We use burlap to sew them up because it's so easy to push a plastic needle through. So it's a great learning opportunity for like making a lenape pouch. You can make arrows with local materials, feathers for your fletching, little piece of stone for your arrow point. So there's like endless ideas to really deepen our connection and interaction with nature, and just stop talking about nature and actually, do an activity that gets their hands dirty. So I wish you luck. We'll take questions. Take care of Mon Nature, and Mon Nature will take care of you. I went through some of these slides quick, but if you go to Nature into Action, I have a website. I try to post up some of these activities with more details and the recipes that I used. So you're welcome to go there. But you can also reach out to me at dalexander@parks.essexcountynj.org or Nature into Action on Instagram. I'd be happy to chat with all you about nature interaction anytime. Thank you.
Awesome, David, that was fabulous. We had a few questions pop up in the chat, so we'll address those first. if other folks have questions, if you could put them in the chat, that would be great since we can't see everybody. Or you can just unmute yourself if you feel like actually using your voice today. So the first question that you got was, Alicia's curious about what you use Arrowwood Viburnum for.
Oh, can you repeat that?
Yes, Alicia is curious about what you use Arrowwood Viburnum for.
Oh, okay. Well, so if I'm selecting plants for landscaping, I want them to have uses beyond just looking pretty. They should provide benefit to wildlife. So it does have berries that the birds absolutely take advantage of. But the arrowwood, it has long, straight shoots that are perfect for making arrows. So you want to find the right plant for the right job. So if you're going to make arrows, you find Arrowwood Viburnum. You find red twig dogwood. Those would be the top two choices, I believe, out here, at least in my forest. You would, if you were Lenape, you would absolutely know where your best resource was for when you needed it. But you might also dig some up and you'd plant it right outside your home. So you have your own hardware store, your own pharmacy, your own grocery store, right out your longhouse with easy access. So if I'm ever picking a plant here at the Environmental Center, it better have multiple values, not just for the wildlife, but hopefully also for programming.
David, I have a follow-up question to that. Do you typically choose deer-resistant plants that you can plant, or do you have a fence in Essex?
We do. I definitely have to do deer-resistant plants, but we do have a half an acre enclosure of native plants. The most valuable plants, MVP plants, which doubles as the deer exclosure because the deer eat like 7 pounds of plants a day. So particularly for the wildflowers. We're protecting that half acre of wildflowers, keeping the deer out. Yeah, but a lot of deer-resistant plants, things like button bush and Joe Pyeweed does okay. Mountain mint, elderberry, arrowwood, swamp milkweed does better than common milkweed. So it takes a while to learn what works in your area or what the deer might nibble on but not completely attack. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Jenny wants to know what else is in your Lenape garden.
What else? I have a little video tour that I was thinking about including in here. I have mountain mints, onion grass are two easy things that just keep coming and coming and coming up. I have spice bush in the area. I have quite a bit of elderberry, which is taking over. I really need to cut back. There's Joe Pyeweed in there. There's some pokeberry in there, not too much. The arrowwood, the wild leeks, the singing nettle. I added some milkweeds in there. A lot of jewelweed comes up on its own. Those are the primary plants. Oh, I have some shad bush serviceberry in the area, but it never did well because I think there's like a cedar rust that kills the berries, and then the kids can get pretty violent. Not violent, but plants grow by the inch, die by the foot, right? Kids step on stuff, and so. But the serviceberry is a wonderful one. If you guys know, like Shad Fest in Lambertville, New Hope area, the shad start swimming up the Delaware when the shad bush blooms. The settlers called it serviceberry because it would bloom when the ground was soft enough that you could bury the dead. So I've got some of that in the Lenape area. I've got a sugar maple tree, so we can tell the story of Chief Waxus and how sugar maple was discovered. Sugar maple syrup was discovered. There's a ton of ostrich fern. One of my favorites is ostrich fern. I use inside fenced areas and outside for landscaping. It looks so nice. It's got a long seasonal growth, but it's also the one edible fiddlehead that grows in New Jersey. So you can forage those fiddleheads, like one per plant. Don't overdo it. And so that's got multiple use. Yeah. Anytime you want to come and visit, I'd be very happy to show you around. It's a small area.
And maybe people can take some elderberry off your hands if they come for a visit. Sienna wants to know if acorn pancakes are edible.
Oh yeah. Acorn was a staple food for the Lenape. Especially the white oaks have less tannins than the red oaks, and you grind them up, and you have to leach the tannins out. So You might do it in a big glass jar right next to your kitchen sink. And when the water turns dark, you pour out that cold water and you put in new cold water. Or you might do hot leaching where you boil it and you immediately transfer it to another batch or simmer it and you immediately transfer it to another batch of simmering water. You don't want to wait so the tannins don't fix within the first batch. Or you might put it in a sack and stick it in the river and just let water run through it. But the smaller you crush the particle size of the acorn, the easier it'll be to leach out those tannins. So then you can mix some acorn flour into your modern flour and make pancakes or like a corn cake, ash cake, something like that. Or maybe even mix some into a bannock. Bannock's a neat little traditional bread that you can have the kids mix up and fry up some little like Indian bread, bannock bread right over the campfire. Yeah.
Awesome. Anne wants to know, what are the youngest children you have taught about wild edibles?
Sometimes it's just little pieces, like every group that comes through. Mountain mint is a fun one. They all see mountain mint because I can pick as much of it as I want and it just keeps coming back. Sometimes I encourage the younger kids to do other activities. The primary activities, we do frog pond science, Passaic river studies, seasonal discovery, nature walks. So, some of this is all about also having additional opportunities for kids to return. Because, a kid will walk the loop once and they'll be like, I know this place, I've seen it all, but, no, they haven't. So I prefer doing more seasonal discovery, nature adventures with the little kids. We still do all kinds of thematic activities like focusing on one animal or one thing at a time, like bats, owls, frogs, bugs. But definitely a little bit here and there. When things are obvious, like maybe a dandelion green they can chew on, or a mountain mint leaf, or just scratch and sniff but not eat. But with the youngest kids, I prefer them using magnifiers and binoculars and just walking and exploring the forest. Yeah.
They always find the best stuff, the little ones.
Yeah. My coworker Heather just did. We were hiking for lichen. Dorothy Smollen's been into this for years, but I really didn't even think it would go over, and the kids loved it. Just going on a scavenger hunt for lichen down low.
Dorothy has a magic about her. She can charm anyone.
Yeah.
So Jim wants to know, do you have a favorite that you seem to always go to for most lessons or programs?
It's all about seasonality. If I set up a 10-week series with a homeschool group, maybe they meet twice a month. So I just try to follow the season. So whatever's accessible. I enjoy the elderberry because that's accessible. The jewelweed is accessible. It's all about accessibility. What's in abundance at this property where the kids are visiting. It's got to be based on what you have in abundance. As a naturalist, like when I started, the kids always think they're going to see like charismatic megafauna, like it's a zoo or something. But you end up. That's why I wrote a book, Hop into Action and Buzz into Action, amphibians and insects, things that are accessible to kids. So whatever's accessible. We've got cattails in our pond, so we can show those off. We've got musclewood. They feel the musclewood. They scratch and sniff the spice bush. So it's like having an interpretive guide. Like if you have an interpretive guidebook to your trail, you might have 20 stops. So, as a naturalist on a seasonal discovery nature walk, I have tons of stops I could make, but you just adapt those stops for the group that you have in front of you. But the website, the Environmental Center website, I've got brochures for field trips, for scout groups, for birthday parties, for libraries. There's just a really wide selection. Sometimes I think we're a little bit like a diner menu. There's a little bit of everything. So I don't necessarily have like a specialty dish. We like, although I shouldn't say that, our field trip brochures are home runs. To me, those are our home runs, tried and true programs that, we know the groups are going to enjoy. Yeah.
Good answer. Jenny wants to know, do you have safety concerns about teaching kids about wild edibles? And do you have parents sign releases or get allergy information?
Yeah, for the homeschool groups, I have them sign a waiver. But this has been a long, I was definitely very nervous starting out, but I've, done things enough myself or with friends that now I have a confidence in certain things. I appreciate having the homeschool groups because they absolutely love these types of activities, whereas they wouldn't always fit into a school group field trip. So a lot of times, yeah, it's with the groups that are more appropriate, like homeschool groups or a Forest Friends Club or a Wilderness Skills Camp. So you find the right audience for it. But yes, we do often have waiver forms for certain programs. I consider myself extremely risk averse. I am definitely not trying to put myself out there into a potentially dangerous situation. So I try to play it safe. Yeah.
David, as a follow-up to that question, are there specific plants that you avoid using with children that you might use yourself because you have more concerns about allergens or any other kind of allergic response?
Probably maybe pawpaws. The skin can give you some gastric, or it can give you some gastric distress. We have pawpaws. I cut those open and just scoop out the flesh so they're not touching the skin. It's a great question. I have to think about it. Yeah, Indian pipe, I wouldn't touch with the kids. Yeah, anything that's that's in low population, I might show, but I wouldn't touch. Because some of the kids don't even have the dexterity to pick something carefully. Heather said nettle. Yeah, that's a great example. Stinging nettle. We are lucky. We have a patch of stinging nettle, but it's like hidden behind something or deep in the middle of the garden. So it's never really been accessible to a kid to just grab a handful of. But that's a terrific example. We have poison ivy. We have plenty of thorns, like wineberry thorns that the kids might just walk into and not notice. But I kind of think more in terms of what I am going to do and not what I'm not going to do. Like focus in on some specific activity around something that I know is safe. A beauty berry, I believe, is technically edible. It's just mealy, so I like to just call it bird food. So when the kids ask, hey, can we eat this? I just say, it's bird food, leave it for the birds. Or if you don't want a kid to touch something, you say, I don't know if an animal went to the bathroom on it. And that usually closes the conversation really quick and they just kind of giggle and walk away. So that's a good way to get kids to drop something that could be potentially an issue. Or just if I just don't have a liability form or it's just not part of the topic and I just need to move on. Sometimes I'll just say, I don't know if an animal went to the bathroom on that.
It's a good one. And Anne just said with camp, she always knows the kids' allergies. Some kids have to avoid nuts. And so in that case, they just don't use walnut or hickory or acorns.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have like a sweet gum forest out here. So we see some nuts, but not too many.
Yeah. We may have some formal classroom teachers in our group today. Are there any activities or how can you integrate these activities for a formal school environment?
Yeah, so I think if you were to buy something online or from a grocery store, like you can buy dandelion greens at a grocery store and then that would make it more appropriate for a school because it's not harvested off the landscape. So sometimes just having a receipt makes in our modern culture makes it seem like it's safe, even if you could easily find it in your forest, just by purchasing it from a reputable seller. If you bought it at ShopRite, it's safe. So sometimes that's a way to get them to have a taste of the wild. And you don't have to tell the kids that it was picked at ShopRite. You could tell them you went to a field in the forest and tell a little story. Yeah.
It's a great one. how do you find participants for your programs? It sounds like you addressed that a little bit with your homeschool groups and your forest
Yeah.
friends. Are there other ways that you reach out to the community for interest?
I would say Facebook is big right now among parent groups. It's like, if you ever look at your own center's Facebook statistics, it's mostly moms. It's like 99% female looking at programs at the environmental center, which is unfortunate. It'd be nice to get some more male involvement. But a lot of the mom groups, homeschool groups, share photos. They take a lot of photos. I encourage them to take photos, and so they share them in their groups, and then they just keeps building. A lot of word of mouth. So you get one homeschool group, and then they're part of another homeschool group, and so you just get calls. And picking up the phone, you kind of be a little bit of a salesperson, and don't just sell one program, sell a second and a third, or set up a series for them. Encourage certain programs in winter that are more appropriate to winter, when you can fill your winter schedule, which might be lighter than your spring, summer, fall. But I think getting an online presence is really important. And good photographs, good visual photographs go a long way. So make a funny face and hold up a mushroom, so silly, but that's the kind of thing that quadruples your likes, your engagements.
David, what do you do if you have kids who have reservations about trying new things? Or do you have kind of an approach that you've noticed works best with kids who are a little more hesitant?
Yeah, everything's challenged by choice. Nobody has to do anything. When I first started as a naturalist, I kind of thought of myself more as like a science teacher, formal science teacher. And really all we're doing at the end of the day is trying to encourage positive interaction and enthusiasm for nature, nothing else. If they leave feeling happy, like they had a good experience outside, then it's mission accomplished. So a lot of kids need a progression, and they need multiple exposures before they get more comfortable with certain things. We're lucky now that we've been running long enough. We've got certain kids in our clubs or camps that are like that show positive attitude, and then the other kids follow. When you have a brand new, fresh group, it can be a little more awkward. But when you got a couple of kids who are like thrilled to return to camp, and there's something they want to experience again, that makes it all that much easier. So nothing's forced.
It's great. It's great to have those ambassadors for your program.
Yeah, that's the.
We might have time for one more question. Does anybody have one more they are just dying to ask David, but maybe a little hesitant to put in the chat box? All right.
All right, guys. So we would like to say thank you so much to our presenter, David Alexander. We appreciate your time. And of course, all the work you're doing is really great, and we appreciate you sharing your little bits of knowledge with us, and humor too, of course. So just a few reminders before everyone takes a little break before our next session. We're going to post in the chat an evaluation link. If you all could fill that out for today's presentation, that would be great. Also, again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't watched the videos from previous conferences, please go check those out. Lots of great stuff happening. And the videos from this conference will be out very soon. Also, please check out the in-person field experiences. You have until 4 o'clock today if you have not signed up for a field experience to do so. So please check those out, and hopefully you can make it out with us this weekend. And also thanks again to our conference sponsors, PSE&G, New Jersey Natural Gas, and our anonymous donor, and to the BASF and Grounds for Sculpture for supporting our field experiences. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully we'll see you again at the next session. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Appreciate everybody joining.
Great.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Fabulous.
I was keeping an eye. The highest number I saw in the participants was up to 37.
And I got 2, Ann. That looked good. Hopefully we had folks check on that, the evaluation link. Erin, do you know if there's different links for each workshop evaluation or if it's the same?
I think they're all the same. I think if they're right
I've
in.
looked at it. It is the same each
Yeah.
time. Mhm.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, so if they didn't get it now, hopefully they'll do it later.
Okay, good. 'Cause
Thank you for hosting. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're
See ya.
welcome. It feels funny to read the script than to just talk. Just trying to throw in a little of me there.
They did make it. I cannot believe how much work went into putting the scripts together. I mean, I looked at it this morning because I didn't catch the training for that for Google for the Zoom training, and I was like, wow,
Yeah,
they really
they did
did
the
an
same
amazing-
thing last year. It seemed to really work because then you didn't have to think too much. You weren't missing any of the key points.
Yep. Yeah, works great. All right, girls. Well, see you when I
See
see
you
you.
later.
Right. Well, Erin, I'll see you in 15 minutes.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I'm gonna go have a snack and then I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.